Hey, I'm Gary Armstrong, and you are here today for a really, really exciting discussion. The lead is Bobby Sanabria, a legendary figure in Latin jazz and Afro-Cuban music. He's a virtuosic drummer and percussionist, a visionary band leader, and a passionate advocate about the rich cultural heritage of Latin American rhythms. His latest project is Bobby Sanabria Big Band Multiverse, Vox Humana. And Vox Humana translates to human voice, and his three human voices are Janis Siegel of the Manhattan Transfer, Jade Ledesna, and Antoinette Montague. So this is an album that I lived in New York for 28 years. My first apartment in New York was way up in Washington Heights at Broadway and Thayer Street. So that's technically 199. And when I would come home at night, I would hear this music playing. In the day, I would hear this music playing. And listening to this album, it reminded me of this amazing street party, this block party where everything in that area was coming together. And if you know anything about that area, it's a mix of Puerto Rican, Dominican, Jewish, and a little bit of Irish once you go up into Inwood. But it's just people all coming together. And I found about this album when Janis, who's a friend, mentioned, hey, I'm on this new album, take a listen to it. Now, I love jazz music, but not all jazz music is good for working out. This album, if you like to work out, is amazing to put on, and you will dance your ass off in the gym. You will do your push-ups. You will do your lifts. It's amazing to listen to. So, but what I want to do is I want to start and ask Bobby about what is the multiverse big band? What does multiverse mean to you? Now, I'm a science fiction fan. You can see Uhura and Kirk behind me. So I understand the multiverse from the quantum physics perspective of multi-variations in the universe. What's your definition of multiverse, and how does it apply to music?
Well, thank you for having me, Gary, and thank you to Gail, and thank you to Janis for facilitating this. It's a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be here. For me, the multiverse is no boundaries musically. And I grew up, I'm a product of my environment. I grew up in the South Bronx. I'm not ashamed to say that I was born in 1957. And I was the product of a time period when jazz, pop music, rock music, and then later on, and funk, and then later on R&B, and then later on disco, all coincided, and all forms of Latin music all coincided with each other. Though all of them were not on the same level in terms of making money from a business or budgetary standpoint, but you could hear all these forms of music while you were growing up in New York City. And I'm a product of that environment. And so I've always been multidimensional in terms of my playing, being able to work in any type of situation that is called upon. And in Latin American music, we have an incredible variety of rhythms. If you talk about a place like Colombia, Colombia has like 150 styles of music. Then my ancestral homeland, Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and then the northernmost city of the Caribbean, New Orleans. You got Brazil, and this is all part of the history of jazz. Though most jazz historians don't know about it, or if they do, they trivialize it. So the multiverse for me is getting all of these forms of music out there to the general public and enriching their lives and educating them and hopefully inspiring them as well. So that's why the orchestra is multi-generational, it's multi-ethnic, and it's inspired a lot by the writings of the great Mexican poet and novelist Octavio Paz, who talks about in his writings that Latin America is a multiverse. It's like a gigantic salad bowl with all these flavors in it. You can see it and look at all the different ingredients to that, but when they come together, they give you this beautiful flavor in your mouth. And of course, we bring it the same way on the stage. And we go all the way back to the birthplace of civilization and rhythm, Africa, which is really our true mother. So, and all combine that with jazz harmony and arranging technique and the virtuosity of the jazz improviser. And these three women, masters of their craft, can certainly bring it in terms of that tradition. And so I'm very fortunate.
So speaking of beautiful flavors, we have Vox Humana. Now, is that the name of the album, or is this are we looking at a new vocal group here? Because you refer to them as Vox Humana as a noun on the album. So
Yeah,
ours,
it's both. It's both. It's both. My hope is that they will continue as a group within the structure of the multiverse big band. So it's
yeah.
both. I've always wanted to do this, and actually during it was fortuitous in many ways. We were supposed to do an album dedicated completely to Puerto Rico, my ancestral homeland. I had the music all rehearsed. The band was rehearsed. We were ready to go. We were booked for 3 days at Dizzy's. We were going to do the album live, like we did West Side Story Reimagined. And then COVID hit. So it got canceled. So then I'm busting my head against the wall and I'm going, oh, this. Then I started thinking, I said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. That idea I've always had to do an album just featuring vocals. And I thought of these three, as I said, masters of their craft, of their art form. And I'm so fortunate that they all said yes.
So I want to throw this to the three singers now because again, listening to the album, some of you have previously recorded the material that you recorded, but it sounds completely different when you're backed by the power of the band. And I also want to address, how do three distinct women maintain your individuality and your individual voice? How are you ensuring that you're part of Bobby's vision, but you're still Jen Jade or Antoinette or Janis, and that uniqueness comes out? So Jen Jade, why don't you sort of address that of how you took your individuality and you ensured you were still Jen Jade on that stage?
I don't even think that's a forethought. I believe that the coexistence of the trifecta of the three vocalists, we're all such navigators within any idiom, I think, on the planet. Just the way we inhabit space indicates how we approach anything we might affect and effect. For me, there's a lot of trust. And Bobby's the kind of alien extraterrestrial that it's like, okay, if you're going to walk the plank, if you're not prepared, you're going to swim by yourself. So it's sink or swim. And he trusts you to know that you've done the work. And in that regard, it's like, okay, well, I got to show up no matter what. And then at that point, it's almost like athleticism. I grew up playing basketball in the Bronx. So it's like, okay, how are we going to win the game? So you're going to do a no-look pass, boom, Antoinette catches it, bam. And then she's over there, bounce passing it to Janis. I mean, pump fake, boom, we score. So it's not even a second thought, because I think the navigator of the ship, Bobby Maestro, he gave everyone their positions and he knows it's going to run the play. That's how I feel.
Yeah. It's interesting reading the three bios. The one commonality I noticed is you all are multifunctional. You're all multifaceted. You're a singer, you're a songwriter, you're an educator, you're multi-tiered with you. I'm not just a singer standing up on stage. So Antoinette, I know you're very involved in the education component and WGBO fundraising, and you are a singer and a performer. And I was listening to your song on repeat. And the one song that I loved was when you sang Who Taught You That? And at 4 minutes into the song, 4 minutes in, you sing Who Taught You That? And said it was well done. And then you just said no. And it was this sort of, this verbal castration of saying to this guy, no, it's not. So how do you go about with something that's so subtle like that, again, with this big 20-person plus person band behind you?
It's one organism. When we're together, the personalities of Janis Siegel and Jade Ledesna and Bobby are so powerful until there's just a basic and honest and respect that we have for each other. And so we just trust and fly and we enjoy. And we learn a lot from Janis about harmonies, etc. God bless Janis. But, it's not even a thought at this point. When you go into something, you hope that everybody has an open heart. These are spiritual walkers. We are storytellers. We are griots in the truest sense of the manner. So when it's time for each of us to tell our story, if support is needed for background, energy, harmony, singing, music, the big band, then that's there. When less is more, then, take out and be less. But the main thing is to thine own self be true in this world of so much falsehood until we can come together and tell these stories. And who taught you that was initially written for Millie Jackson and had a sexual connotation. I don't sing wussy songs. And so I'm going to sing. And so the interpretation came from me as far as adjusting the lyric, especially after the shootings that took place in Buffalo at the supermarket, killing people, and that our children are being bullied, and that there is malbehavior throughout the universe. So somebody sat at a breakfast table and either taught hate, or they watched a movie too early before going to school or going out in the universe that was violence. So who taught you that? This violence in this world begs to wonder. And so this song gets a chance. I think it's the only original that's on the recording, and the interpretations of all of the songs are originals because they're coming from these maestros, these amazing artists that it is such an honor to be on a project with. I still am pinching myself because it's just, and we get along marvelously. There is no backstory of back bull crap. There is just a lot of respect and love and honest. And so here we are. The only person that gets beaten up on a regular basis is Bobby. You hear that's true. It's very true.
But I could take
you guys didn't meet each other before Bobby connected you, correct?
Not true. Jade and I met decades ago.
Okay.
And Janis, I watched for the first time when she did a tribute, when you did Don't Go to Strangers with Houston Person at the Blue Note. We just lost Etta, and Etta Jones was my mentor. And so to go and support somebody who loved Etta as well, loved that music, loved that iconic song was a privilege.
Now, Janis, one of your highlights on the album was a song that actually was on your very first solo album, Experiment in White, and that came out probably 43 years ago. And so you revisited To
Be With You.
The song by Joe Cuba.
Yeah, To Be With You.
Yeah, To Be With You.
Yeah.
And you told me something yesterday about it when you did the original recording.
Yes. It was my first solo record in 1981 was produced by Joel Dorn. And Joel, was a master of eclecticism as well. And he surrounded me. He set me like a jewel. He surrounded me with the absolute best people for the particular genre. So when I decided to do To Be With You, he got Tito Puente's rhythm section to play. And that was an incredible lesson and exposure to this beautiful, beautiful music, and this bolero in particular. And I think I learned it from Tim Hauser. Yep, most likely, because he heard it growing up, and he played it for me. Okay. So that was my first experience with the song.
And did you bring it to this project, or did Bobby bring it?
I don't remember. Bobby, did you suggest it?
I knew that you had recorded it.
Yeah.
And I heard it, and I said, "Oh, we got to do this, because blown up with the orchestra to a big band, to the majesty of a big band, and to envelop you, in all that angst and love." Because the song, for those of you who are watching, a bolero is the Cuban style romantic ballad. It has a deep tradition going back to the 1880s. But in New York City, Puerto Ricans who took the banner of Cuban music adopted it, and we play it. The interaction between the African American community and us led to these great, great expressions on recordings and live. And the Joe Cuba Sextet, most of them grew up in East Harlem alongside African Americans, so they grew up with doo-wop culture, R&B culture, and Willie Torres, the great vocalist, and Nick Jimenez, the pianist, they both wrote the song together. So it's like an R&B doo-wop bolero. That's the best way I could describe it.
That appeals to me.
And that in 1962, when it came, I have the original album, and my father bought it, and when he played it, everybody in New York City was slow dancing to that song. And of course, it brought the Puerto Rican community and the Black community even closer together. So the album is autobiographical. it's completely autobiographical. You want to know who I am, listen to this album. And every song has something to do with my life as a young person.
Okay. So Jen Jade, the song of yours that really threw me, and I posted it, it was where I was like, what is she singing? How is she singing it? She's singing in tongues at one point. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I know you're a polyglot. How many languages do you speak?
4 fluently, and then I sing in about 9 or 10.
Okay, so that's probably what was happening. And so, so when you sing in different languages, do you have to change your vocal style?
I think it's quite it's kind of tough sometimes, especially because I live in Paris too, and I spend a lot of time in South America. So it's always a surprise to me too, because I don't know what expletives are going to actually come out, or even physical gestures with with the body mechanics. It's not easy, because then you're thinking like I speak Portuguese, and then I'm like, okay, so daqui como assim? Ooh, instead of the ooh, then I have to go to the oh, because then the Latino community doesn't want to hear they want to hear a if I'm in France, oh, so it's like these little nuances. And then I had to wrap my mind around the fact that, Jen, it's okay if you have an accent, because you're like mixing all these different things. So forgive yourself for perhaps not being as, and I travel a lot. So it was tough on Sunday, y'all, when I was like, wait, okay, wait, wah. And it's like, where are we? And you hear all these things in your head. You're like, okay, wait, what language? What is the words? What does this mean? So in Partido Alto, it's interesting because in my mind, I love percussion, adore percussion, and I like to dance a lot. So I'm hearing subdivisions of rhythm, and Janis is like the queen of like bebop harmonies and such. Me, I just like so when I have to like do some like I'm just like, because in my mind I'm hearing like fills of drums or percussion or whatever, or just a dance like and then spin and then waka. So it's like a physicality of what I would actually try to phonate. So hopefully in the future, and I'm going to work on it, shedding, I'm getting the harmonic accents, maybe like in, movement in leaps within the fabric of the actual rhythmic modulations. So that's how it felt. And oftentimes when I perform, I hear like 4 of the things in my head, and I'm like, okay, which one can I do today? It's like, so that's probably what you heard. I was like,
I love
and I'm hearing
it was this crazy town, but I was like, it's crazy, but I want to hear more. It was like your first hit of cocaine, right? You're like, I need more. I want her to do more of that. It was great. So,
I have my coffee. That's the culprit.
Great. Now that we know this is a family-friendly show, let me just say that that tune Partido Alto, I specifically picked it for Jen because I knew she would knock it out of the park. And she had a tough job because the person that takes the first solo on that tune is Jeff Lederer, who is a freaking beast on tenor saxophone. He's like the reincarnation of Mike Brecker. And, with a lot of Albert Ayler thrown in. And so Jen, most singers, probably any other singer would go, man, I'm not going to solo after him. Not after that guy. But Jen said, okay. You got it.
I mean,
that's her Bronx thing coming out, which is I love about her.
No, I mean, quietly in my inception when I was undergrad, I was working every weekend with the luxury of Eric Lewis, and he was the cat that was like, "What you gonna do now, Jen? What you gonna do now?" And I'm like, "Oh, word, okay." So I love challenges. It's fun.
And it's a Bronx thing too, because it's a Brooklyn thing too. With the Brooklyn and the Bronx are the soul of New York. You tell us, yo, man, what you gonna do? I go, well, all right, check this out. So that swagger comes out throughout the album.
So, Bobby, on the album, you introduced, Antoinette as the Queen of New Jersey, and Janis as the Queen of Brooklyn, and on and on. Is there a difference in the singing and the approach from those different regions of New York City, or is it that big sort of multiverse that you were mentioning earlier?
It's that multiverse that I was talking about. But the reason these 3 masters, I asked them to do this is because they each are individual voices, which as jazz players, jazz musicians, we cherish that. You want individuality out of the person. You don't want a cookie cutter thing. And each one of them stylistically as improvisers, they're all legitimate jazz improvisers. A lot of singers say they're jazz singers, And I always qualify by saying, do you scat? Which means, do you improvise like an instrumentalist? A lot of them really don't. They phrase like a jazz musician. They use the harmonic devices of a jazz musician. But the true test of really a true jazz singer, to me, and this is just my opinion. I'm sure some people in the chat will say, "Wait a minute, what about this and that?" There's exceptions to the rule. People like Billie Holiday, etc. But a real true jazz vocalist has to be able to improvise, whether it's a blues, a bebop tune, or just a vamp on a funk tune. And with us, you know, when we do the various Afro Latin rhythms that we do in that context too, and they're all individuals. They're all individuals. That's the main reason they're part of the multiverse. I held off on this for many years. I've had this idea for many years. Remember what I told you, ladies, before we went on stage at Dizzy's? I said, thank you for fulfilling this dream that I've had. You're the only ones that could do this. And the testimony of it is the recording, which was done live, no jive.
Yeah. So one of the as I said earlier, one of the commonalities with each of you is the idea of education and the next generation, and sort of ensuring that the next generation appreciates past culture and current culture. And there was a recent article on NBC. Actually, it was Lin-Manuel Miranda interviewing a transgender superstar from Puerto Rico. And they talked about how reggaeton is omnipresent in Puerto Rico, and reggaeton is essentially this machismo, very aggressive driven hip hop sort of sound mixed with dance music. And yet this transgender star went into that world to claim their own place, and the idea of, I'm going to take onto their turf. And obviously it was successful. So in the world of jazz, in terms of culture and finding the next generation, do you think it's important to continue to evolve the jazz, or is it better to say, stay pure and true to what you do?
Are you asking me first? Or?
Anybody who wants to answer that.
I'll defer to the ladies.
This is the music born out of oppression. This is Black music.
Yeah.
You know, reggaeton as well. So as I tell young people who get upset about what's going on in their career, I said, if this music being born out of oppression upsets you, or you thought none of that was going to get on you, now you understand the journey that you're on. So understand our history, respect the people who are the inventors, that once it's out in the air and everyone is allowed through the genius of what was created to bring their cultural stamp on it, but always honor source. It's like doing a college term paper and not citing source of how something got invented, how it evolved. So they have to understand what the root of it is. Right after Emancipation Proclamation, the freedom and liberty that the men who created this, the Black men who created it, were able to tour around the country in beautiful outfits and play their music and really lift the souls of disparate people and themselves. It's to be respected no matter who comes in, to honor the source and know your history. And then the freedom and liberty that it is to reflect is where the creativity comes in. You have some rules that you really want to honor, or it just is not blues or jazz. Blues is the roots, everything else is the fruit. Jazz comes from the blues. So we're griots, we're stories, we're lovers of humanity. We enjoy the audiences. Every person on this screen is a master performer as well. We enjoy giving up, stripping down, and going for it 100%. So our young must understand the roots, the evolution, the trajectory of the future, but to never ever stop you standing on the shoulders of other inventors, that there is nothing new under the sun.
Okay. Janis, you had your hand up as well.
No, I was just saying yes,
Oh, okay.
Antoinette. Very, very, very well put. Very well put. Both things are important.
Yes.
Knowing the history and inventing the future.
There you go.
And you were talking about science fiction before, that you're a fan. I'm a big fan of science fiction if you ever get this question asked on what is it, Jeopardy? You know, Bobby Sanabria's favorite movie, it's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick, who was a Bronxite as well. But the reason that we're able to do the things that we do in the Multiverse Big Band is, as Janis said, we stand on the shoulders of all of the history that has come before us, all of the history. So, and a lot of people watching right now, I've sort of developed a reputation as being a historian of both jazz and all forms of Latin music, but rock and everything else too. But I'm just an avatar of the music. That's all I am, really. And with that said, because we have all this knowledge available to us, we're taking the music to another place. I like to say, we'll take you on a journey where no big band has ever gone before, and we do it. We all of a sudden the band sounds like Tito Puente's orchestra, and then I turn on a dime and it sounds like Count Basie's orchestra. I mean, it's just, and all of a sudden it sounds like Don Ellis's orchestra. And some of you who know my history, we've even recorded music by Frank Zappa, Hermeto Pascual, some of the most forward-thinking minds in the history of this music, as well as the compositions coming from internally from within the orchestra. So, and we can do that because we know all of that history. Janis, all of these women can swing hard and take no prisoners in a bebop context, in a blues context, but if they can get down and dirty on an R&B tune, on a rock tune or whatever. So I have that all available at my disposal through them, and that's why I asked them to be part of this. And they really were the only ones that could be part of this.
I just want to say one thing also, that each comes with a history, their own careers. Janis with all those Grammy Awards that she just throws up in the air somewhere, and they twisted it all kind of ways and everything. I'll come over and shine them up. But but we literally leave the, you have to have a sense of ego and self-esteem as a singer to have the nerve to get up on stage and say, here I am, hear my song, listen. But to come and have the love that Janis is drenched in and that Jade is drenched in is a real privilege to be connected with. And Bobby respects that we have had our own things coming in, but here we come, coming together as a spirit of oneness to create this new energy and this new music. So I'm proud of that. Jen?
In regard to your question about the youth, I find in my travels internationally and living in places and just trying to plant seeds and create community, I'm filled with very, very, very deep pride when people take North American music from our country and try to emulate it and adapt it to their respective countries, separate from the global epidemic of Westernization and such. I think it's important for the youth to recognize that one thing that's been lost over the years is that the aspect of the vaudevillian essence of inhabiting many spaces, because it's the human condition that one is translating into the healing of this magnificent gesture of receiving something and giving it out as a healing, like Antoinette said, source. It's sad that people try to deconstruct and put things in compartmentalized places, genres, or, are you an actor or are you a singer? And it's like, Lee Strasberg would say there's no passport between the arts. So I think part of that has been lost. Also, I've been trying to make a point of going out to hear more live music. All the machines that are coming in and auto-tuning things and these backbeats, it's fine. But when it's used as a crutch, then it's incapacitating the actual human to create something or to develop the musculature of that greatness. Jazz is also very, the autonomy of oneself, the awareness of oneself, all the time you spend by yourself doing a first position, second position, third position. You have to do the time, and then you can play together. or, Kobe at the free throw line. You still have to put the time in to then begin to function as a team. And also one has to think about passing of the torch. And, the aspect, what I find specifically amongst singers, a lot of the time, and dancers too, there's a lot of me, you can't have, but it's like, there's enough for everyone, and we all get there together. As my mom would say, may she rest in peace, there's power in numbers. So I think that as we get away from what initially was the creation of jazz, which is, music from the fields, the harvests, how do we move forward together as a unit to help triage each other? I think that has to be also put forth to the future as well.
Yeah, I don't believe in passing the torch, but I believe in lighting many torches. I can still keep mine, and I can help ignite yours.
Yeah,
but I
not
can't keep mine.
It's not
I love that.
pie. It's not pie. It's not a finite thing.
That's right.
There's enough for everybody.
There's enough for everybody. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing. When I started telling some of the guys in the band that what I was going to do, I only told a few. A few of them were going, man, you know what happens when you get singers? I go, and you're going to get 3 singers? They're going to be at each other's throats, man. And I go, no, they're not. Just, you got to trust me. You don't know how many times I have to say, trust me. Trust. The ladies can tell you, I'm always saying something, trust me.
And the musicians sometimes are no different. They're human beings. Yeah. They're human beings. We're all on this journey of music, trying to keep this art form lifted as best we can. And so to get rid of the ageism that exists, the sexism, the anti, this, that, and the other, I mean, it's about liberation. It's about joy. And that's that.
And I think it's taken me a long time to get this band to the point where I've gotten it. This is the 25th anniversary of this band. And man, you don't know some of the nightmares I've had with it. And people have told, when I started it in 1998, people tell me, you're crazy, Bobby. You'll do a couple of gigs and that. It's been 25 years, and every album that we've done has been nominated for a Grammy. So, and we've gotten the opportunity to play in Europe, all over across the country, et cetera, et cetera. And now with these 3 incredible artists, the reach of the band is even more, because you just have to hear them in the context of the band. Obviously, you'll hear them if you get the new recording, but it's really a thing of wonder. I'm the luckiest person in the room, because I get to drive the bus, man, and watch these ladies soar. And what Antoinette said is really true. We're human beings. We have foibles, et cetera, et cetera. Not everybody is going to get along or whatever. But at this point, the people that I have in the band are, and the reason the band sounds so good is because everybody trusts each other. And when you trust them, that's an expression of love, and also respect, which is also another expression of love. People ask me all the time, what do you need to have, Bobby, to have a good band? I go, you got to have the members in the band, like Elvin Jones used to say about being in the John Coltrane Quartet. Everybody in this band is ready to die for the mother flower. Everybody. And that's what you want. And it's hard to get. It's hard to get. It's very, very hard to get, because, as Antoinette said, we're human. But also that human aspect is what makes jazz so, so incredible, because everybody brings, hopefully, their individuality and their virtuosity. And I like to say one more thing. Antoinette has a saying that I love. She should copyright it. The problem with the music today is we have not enough jazz musicians. We got too many jazz morticians, and in relating to the fact of engaging the audience and entertaining the audience as well. The music used to be presented in an entertaining way, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you bring the people in, and we do that as well. So,
yeah.
So, well, I'm going to disagree with you at one point, Bobby, because you said you were the lucky man here. And yet I think I'm the luckiest one here, because I got to sit and talk with the 4 of you, and I get to listen to your music every day at the gym. So and I'm working on my thighs on that. My quads are getting tight when I work out to music. So on that note, we are done. We're out of time. I encourage everybody who's listening and who's been watching this to pick up the album. It's really, really amazing. And you feel like you're sitting there in the room. As I said, it's the most amazing, warm, and loving block party you've ever been to. It is just everybody coming together, all the neighbors there and dancing, enjoying themselves, and giving you a big hug when you need it. So,
Awesome.
okay. So
Thank you for that.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'd like to thank Gail Boyd for hosting us. And as I
Thank
said,
you, Gail. Thank you.
pick up,
And thank you,
yeah.
Gary.
it's on every platform. I bought mine on iTunes, but you can buy it where you prefer. And I look forward to hearing you guys again. And I look forward to your next recording and for your Grammy nomination, Bobby.
Well, hopefully we get it, and hopefully, as Janis says, I got to pick out a dress. And I go, for what? I go, when we get up there, you know.
Well, you know,
We'll be going to the Grammys.
there we go. There we go.
Yeah. And I'd like to say that I'd like to congratulate Janis, all of us in the multiverse, congratulate Janis on an incredible 50th anniversary of the Manhattan Transfer. What an incredible, incredible, accomplishment. 50 years, the leading jazz vocal harmony group in the world. Every jazz vocal harmony group that exists today is because of the Manhattan Transfer and their inspirations.
All righty.
Okay.
I'm at the Morris Museum, June 22nd. Check it out, morrismuseum.com. See y'all later.
And we'll be with the Multiverse on June 24th at the Bay Plaza Mall in the North Bronx in Co-op City. And the food court there at 2 o'clock. It's free. Come and enter the Multiverse.
Okay.
Yeah.